All right, so it's time to buy a car. Maybe it's a used car. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to a dealership, you're going to go to a used car lot, or maybe you're going to connect with some strangers over like Kijiji or Auto Trader or I don't know what. Then you dicker over the price and you cross your fingers and hope the car is not a lemon, say a little prayer, all that. I hate this process. I hate all car buying processes. But here's a new one. What if you didn't have to leave your house? What if there was some guarantees? What if there It's called Clutch, and it is a car company that allows you to buy, sell, finance all without leaving your house. To talk about how it works, we're going to talk to CEO Dan Park. Hello there.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for having me on the show.
I can't believe I'm talking about cars because I really do hate them. I'm not joking. I really hate the whole process. I drive the car into the ground and then I start again. Hopefully, it's been at least 12 years. How does this model work? And specifically, how is it different from just, going to one of those websites that already exist?
Yeah, so no one loves the car buying process, and that's why we started back in 2017. It seemed crazy to us that really for Canadians, the only two options were to either meet some stranger in a Walmart or Tim Hortons parking lot, or spend 6 hours haggling at a dealership. Those were the two options. No one likes that and felt like there had to be a better way. So the way Clutch works is that we buy cars directly from the public. We're buying about $2 million worth of cars every single day. So we provide consumers a way to offload or sell their car, whether they're moving out of the country, maybe they're getting married and both people have a car and need to get rid of one. There's a bunch of reasons why people need to get rid of their cars, and we provide a very seamless way to do that. We have an instant cash offer where you can sell that car for cash. We built a ton of technology that allows you to get that offer online in seconds. Then what we do is we take those cars, those that meet our strict retail standard, then go through what we call our production process or a reconditioning process, where we have facilities. Our largest one is in Mississauga. It's a 20-acre facility where we recondition those vehicles. Clutch mechanics and clutch inspectors will make sure that that car is up to a retail standard. And then we put them on our website to provide a very Amazon-like experience where you can buy and sell a car from the comfort of your own home. Super transparent experience. There's no guessing what the price is going to be. There's no kind of fiddling with the options that you can add at the end of at the end of the purchase. Everything is right there in front of you, and you have this no pressure situation where you can buy and sell a car.
People who know the dealership model would often say the used car lot's the most profitable part of the business, maybe aside from service. How do you determine what margin the market will bear at how much you buy the car for, and then obviously you need to sell it at a profit?
Yeah, so we're working at scale, so we can afford to take a smaller margin, and so generally consumers will get a better price at clutch.ca than they would otherwise. We don't have fancy showrooms. We don't, if you drive down any of the major streets or highways in any city in Canada, those dealerships are very expensive. They're massive. They're fancy. Those costs are getting passed on to consumers. And so what we do is we get rid of all of that. We provide you with a much easier and simpler way to buy a car. And as a result, consumers are getting a better price and a higher quality vehicle.
What kind of guarantee do you offer? Because that, like I bought the last car I bought was brand new off the lot, and there's certain warranties and guarantees with that. I've mostly throughout my whole life have bought used. What sort of guarantee? You're putting the car through your production process. Does they get me a certificate or a stamp of some sort?
Yeah, so every car is certified by Clutch, and it also meets the this pretty high provincial standards and local standards that the government imposes. And so there's a safety standard that every car obviously passes. But for us, we think that the test drive model is broken. The average consumer doesn't really learn that much by going on a 10-minute test drive with the used car salesperson sitting in the front seat with you. Most consumers, all they can really tell is the brakes work, it doesn't smell, and the air conditioning
Right.
is cold, right? Those are the average consumer doesn't know a ton about cars, and what you get from a 10-minute test drive is virtually nothing. So what we offer is a 10-day money back guarantee. And so you can take that car, you can make sure it fits in your garage, make sure the kids' hockey equipment fits in the trunk. You like the space, and if you don't like the car, you can return it. And we also offer a 90-day warranty, and then for additional costs, you can actually buy extended warranties or a longer term package plans that protect the vehicle.
What percentage of clients would return the car before that 10 days are up?
You'd be surprised. It's very low. It's low single digits, and about half of those folks that actually choose to return the car will actually exchange it for a different one.
Interesting. Financing is a big deal. I mean, I was looking on your website today. These cars are not $2,000, they're like real money. How do
Yep.
you work financing into the equation?
Yeah, so about 75 to 80% of our consumers choose to get financed, and we have relationships with all the major banks. So RBC, Scotia, TD, CIBC, and we help them help consumers arrange the loan. I think the difference that we have between us and a traditional dealership is oftentimes, depending on who you are as a customer, you get a different price. And what that means is depending on your credit, or if you look like someone that could be taken advantage of, there's a different price for you. And so if you look on some of these websites, and some of the biggest in Ontario and other places in Canada, there's no price listed for the vehicle. It just says contact for price, right? And
Mm,
that really is a warning to say that, hey, look, like they're going to try to get you for a price that they think they can get you for. And so a lot of times, a lot of folks will drive off the lot overpaying by $10,000 or
wow.
more because all they focused on is the monthly payments, right? If you go into a dealership and they ask you how much you can afford and you say $600 a month, magically whatever car you buy is now going to be
Right.
$600 a month, right?
Right.
And so that's the difference with us. All of the total cost of the vehicle is obviously well listed on our site, but then also you can break it down by monthly payments and do the math yourself. And I think the best way to protect yourself as a consumer is just to be educated.
I was looking at the buy side. I was also looking at the sell side. And when I went to put in the details of my car, it asked for my license plate. So, do you have access to the history on my car?
So we've bought government data that allows us to take the license plate and then convert that into what's called a vehicle identification number that gives us the specs behind that vehicle. What we don't have is the mileage and how you've driven that car. And so we ask a series of about a dozen questions about anything you've done to that car since you've purchased it. It's on a no names basis. We don't have any personal identification information from the license plate. All we have is the make, model, year, and trim of that vehicle.
In what areas do people lie? I'm not an online dater. I've been married for too long, but a lot of people lie when they go online to date. I can
Yep.
imagine that people try and, frame the car's history in the most positive light possible.
So for anyone that does schedule a pickup or a drop off, we do pull a Carfax. And so Carfax is the history of the vehicle. Any accidents, any if it was stolen, any maintenance, that all gets recorded. So we have a very good sense of the history of the vehicle. I think refreshingly, most Canadians are quite honest about the quality of their vehicle. I think people want to get the right price for the car, so they're providing the right information. That said, there are times where consumers are actually unaware of any damage that's happened to the vehicle or that it's been in an accident. We've had a few instances where, we have to tell the consumer that, look, that this has been in an accident, and so as a result, we can't honor that price. And they say, I had no idea it was in an accident. When I bought it from a dealership, they never told me about it, which
Mm.
very well might be the case. And so I think that's the area where actually people just don't know that it was in an accident. And an accident can reduce and usually does reduce the value of that vehicle. So I wouldn't say it's lying, but it's just not being aware of the vehicle's history, and you can pull that up pretty easily.
Mm.
Or, there's times where, people exaggerate on the condition of the car. But for the most part, people are quite honest, and really it's for the most part situations where they just didn't know.
This is not your first gig working in the tech space. When you reflect on your career and maybe Uber in particular, what is the like, do this, don't do that you took from that experience and tried to bring to Clutch?
Yeah, I mean, Uber was a pretty special place that, we were trying to disrupt an entire industry. I spent more time on the food side, and I think what we're trying to do is offer a similar level of convenience. We've had a few customers say that buying a car off of Clutch is just as easy as ordering a pizza. I mean, that's what we want to achieve, is that kind of simplicity for a purchase that, for the most part, has been super complicated. And so, one of the things that we are trying to implement and trying to strive for is just ease and transparency around experience. I think I think with the narrative that's going on in Canada around Build Canada and Canadian innovation, we are very much in the business of trying to build a world-class company. When we think about a car buying experience, we're not trying to compare ourselves to the traditional dealership. What we're trying to compare ourselves is to any other amazing consumer experience that you get. And so for us, that's been a big part of it, is just being really consumer focused. Internally as a company, culturally, one of the things that I think we do really well is make some bets. We've made a lot of interesting bets. I think I mean, a good example early on was, any survey would tell you that 80% and 85% of people would never buy a car without a test drive.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty common belief. I think everyone just assumed that, if I'm going to buy a car, I have to test drive it. I think we've flipped that on its head, challenged that assumption, and provided a customer experience around car buying that is frankly better than a traditional car buying experience without a test drive and with more assurances. And so, I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is really provide that great customer experience and provide something that's world class.
Really interesting stuff. Dan, thank you for joining us to talk about it today.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
Dan Park, CEO of Clutch.